Hey everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm here with Sebastian to walk you through the topic of building questions and answers chatbots. Now, before we get started, I need to run you through some quick logistics for this webinar. If you can't hear me, haven't been able to hear me, or at some point the audio cuts out for you, please connect with your computer audio, not your phone. This is a very common issue with GoToWebinar. If that doesn't work, just try restarting your GoToWebinar viewer and all should be okay. And if all else fails, and you can't watch the presentation we provide today, or maybe you just want to watch it again, we'll be sending a follow-up email with a link to the video along with links to some of the resources we present today. As a quick introduction, my name is Ilyan Iliev, and I'm leading the native chat development team here at Progress. I'm extremely passionate about how technology can make life simpler, both in workspace and at home. This led to my desire to work on chatbots and in particular, Progress Native Chat. Today, we will begin with a quick review of the types of question and answers chatbots. Then we will go through the demo on how to build your own Q&A chatbot. After that, we will get into a simplified overview of how natural language processing works, along with some tips and tricks on how to handle corner cases that you might hit. Before we go to questions, we will go through the pilot program that we offer at Progress, in which we would help you define and build a chatbot that resolves your business problem. Feel free to ask any questions as you go by using the questions tab in GoToWebinar. Let's start by exploring the types of Q&A chatbots. The first approach to building Q&A chatbots doesn't use any fancy artificial intelligence algorithms. Those chatbots utilize exact matches, and they only understand the things they've been hard-coded to understand. The image on the left is just for illustrational purposes. The only way to build a chatbot like this is by coding your way through it. When users ask, "What are your working hours?" they will get a correct answer. But if they change something small or formulate the question in a different way, the chatbot will get confused. The next approach utilizes natural language processing limited models. Those algorithms loosely match the user expressions with the training data. You need to use structured data to create your model. You'll be using FAQ pages or other structured documents with questions and answers in them like CSVs. You may also leverage pre-trained models, as this will lower the effort spent on your site and make the bot smarter. The example I have here contains 4 different ways to ask the question and all result with the same answer for them. As you can see, you can ask, "Are you open now?" and still get the answer even though this question is not part of the initial training data. The next thing I want to show you is this chatbot for COVID-19. You can test this chatbot on our native chat website, and on top of that, you can create a copy of it so you can test some customizations. Sebastian will show you how to do that as part of his demo segment. The last approach to building chatbots is using unstructured data. Let's take a look at this Wikipedia article, which defines what airplane mode is. If a user asks, "Can I make calls in airplane mode?" the bot will try to derive the answer from the text it was trained with. And in this case, the answer will be "No, it's not possible." Another example would be related to disabling airplane mode. This answer won't be found in the Wikipedia article. But the bot can understand that the user, for example, is an Apple user, and it can derive the answer from Apple's documentation if trained correctly. Now let me hand it over to Sebastian to do a demo for you, explain more about NLP, and give you some tips and tricks. Sebastian, over to you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sebastian Vitalec and I'm a senior developer advocate at Progress. So today I will show you a few things, and I want to start with a quick demo of how to build a question and answering chatbot. And so I'll kind of show you from the very beginning all the steps that are required to create a chatbot, but also how to maintain and what sort of things you can do with it. And my demo is going to be based on a COVID-19 Q&A chatbot that we've created that you could use as a template, and you can learn more about it from this landing page. And also I wrote a couple of articles that instructs you on how to use that chatbot and how to make it your own. So if you think your company might need a Q&A chatbot for answering COVID-19 questions to your employees, this could be a great place for you to start. So let me just jump into native chat portal and show you how this is all done. So this is the native chat development platform, and you can see that I already have one chatbot project here, which I will show you later on when we get to tips and tricks. But first thing I want to do is create a new chatbot. So I'll click over here and select the coronavirus FAQ sample. And as a name, I will say coronavirus FAQ. And what this will do is create a brand new chatbot for us. And this chatbot sample already has some predefined questions. So I could already ask things like, what is COVID-19? Or I can ask, can I work from home? And the chatbot will answer that question as well. So if you wanted to have a look where these questions and answers are coming from, we could go to the question and answering section, and you can see in here that we have a bunch of categories. Each is containing questions and answers specific for that category. So let's start by going to the meetings Q&A, and in here we see we have 3 different Q&As, and it's interesting because each will have a set of questions that you could ask. So this is how you could potentially trigger this question, and then you have an answer for those questions. So let's update one of them. I'm going to click on our event status, and we can, for example, add some additional questions to trigger this Q&A. So we could start by saying something like, what happened to startup, which could be a name for an event that we had at a company. And then another one, we could say, what happened to sales kickoff? And we can already test that by pressing Save Changes and say something like status startup. And the chatbot will respond with an answer. We could also update the answer to something that is more meaningful to our company. So I can change this to, let's say, all upcoming live events are cancelled, including startup and sales kickoff. And when I save this, we can test it once again, and I can say event status. And now we'll see the updated answer. We can also add a completely new question. So let's press here, and we could add one that will give our users answers about what sort of video conferencing tools they can be using. So I can say something in the questions like video conferencing, what to use for calls, can I use Zoom, and can I use Microsoft Teams? And I'll set the group name to conferencing, and the answer should be something like, for all calls, you should use Microsoft Teams. It is okay to use Zoom for external calls. And you can see I'm using this new line, little bit of code. It's just basically telling the chatbot to split this answer into 2 speech bubbles. And to test that, I will save and ask questions like, can I use Zoom? And we get the answer that we provided, and all works pretty nicely. If you don't like any of the questions, let's say you came here and video conferencing doesn't make sense to you, click on trash icon, press delete, and then that question goes away. So you could adopt this chatbot and make it work just for you. One last thing I wanted to show you in this demo is a bit where you can do something pretty clever and say something like, I have a question about meetings. And the chatbot will actually respond with a list of available questions in that category. It is a special feature that I implemented for this chatbot, and I can, for example, say attending events, and the chatbot will respond with that and then ask you again if you have some additional questions in this category. And where these values come from for each of those is basically when we have a list of questions for each Q&A, we always will use the first value to display that. And if you're curious on how to implement and make it work, I will refer you back again to these 2 articles that I posted in here. You could read all about it, and in there I explain everything step by step. When you are building a chatbot, it is good to understand what natural language processing is and how it works. So natural language processing, or as we refer to it as NLP, is the ability of a computer program to understand human language as it is spoken. To explain how NLP works, we'll analyze the whole process by using these two Q&As as an example. So let's imagine we have one Q&A that allows the user to ask for the address with two possible questions. What is your address and where are you located? And the answer for that should be 14 Oak Park Drive, Bedford, etc., etc. And then the second set of Q&A should be for phone. So the user should be able to ask something like, what phone can I reach you on? Or what is your telephone number? And the chatbot should respond with +1 781 280 4000. So let's have a look at how this whole process works. So the first thing that NLP does is take each of those expressions and tokenize it. So by tokenizing, what we mean is taking the sentence and then splitting into individual words or even punctuation. And this expression is basically divided into 5 tokens. So let's take our expressions and turn them into tokens. So the address Q&A will have those tokens and the phone Q&A will have those tokens. So far so good. Next step, we have to highlight the tokens that are in common within each Q&A. So if you look on the left, the 2 tokens that we have in common are the question mark. If you look on the right, we have more tokens in common. So we have what and phone and a question mark on both of those expressions. And basically highlighted tokens are the tokens that are of a bigger value. If somebody asks a question that includes word what and phone, then automatically NLP will know that those are really important words and it is more likely that we are asking about phone than anything else. While words like reach or number are still important to the phone Q&A, but they're not as important as what and phone. Then we can represent those tokens as set of tokens. So now imagine on the left we have the address set of tokens, on the right we have the phone set of tokens. And the next step of this process is identifying words and tokens that are colliding between the 2 sets. So by looking at these 2 sets, we can identify the following collisions. We have what is your, you, and a question mark in both of the sets. So if we bring those 2 sets together, we should get something like that. On the left hand side, we have tokens for the address where our address and located are specific to address Q&A only. On the right hand side, we have phone, can I reach, number, and on tokens, which are specific to the phone Q&A only. While what is you and your and a question mark are tokens that are in common between the 2 sets. So technically, if I use any of those words, NLP might be linking that expression to both of the Q&As. So what we do with those tokens that are in common, we basically treat them as matches but penalized. So we basically apply a lower score for this type of matches. So once we created this model, we can use it to match it to various expressions. So for example, if the user said something like, where is your office located? We should be able to identify the tokens that match this expression. So in here you will see we have where is your located and a question mark, which basically means that we matched 5 tokens to the address Q&A, of which 3 are penalized because those are the 3 that are in common. And we matched 3 to the phone Q&A, but all of them are penalized. So you could pretty much guess that the address one is the Q&A that will win this battle. If we try another expression like, what are your phone number? And don't mind the grammar, the mistake here is on purpose. We should be able to again use the model to match each of those tokens. So basically we matched R, what, your, question mark, phone, and number. And if we analyze that, that means the address Q&A has 4 matches, of which 3 are penalized, so those are the 3 in red. While the phone Q&A has 5 matches, what, your, question mark, phone, and number, of which we have 3 penalized matches and 1 bonus match for the highlighted, the really strong token, and 1 regular for number. And obviously the phone Q&A is the one that is going to win this battle. But NLP doesn't just choose the most probable expression that matches to what the user is saying. It actually provides us also with a confidence level. right? So if we look at the model and what was matched, we'll look at number of matches, then we'll take into consideration bonus for highlighted tokens. We'll also take into consideration the penalty for the collision tokens, so those that were in common between the two sets. And then finally, we also look at the total number of tokens that were provided. And if we take all of this information and drop it into the NLP calculator, as a result, we'll get a confidence score. And if that score is above 65%, so when I ask where is your office located, the chatbot will respond with an answer. If the confidence level is below 65%, then the chatbot will respond with something like, sorry, I don't know that. And in a nutshell, this is how NLP works, and this is how chatbots know what you're trying to say and what to tell you in response. I would like to finish my segment with a number of tips and tricks that you could use to help you build chatbots that are good at understanding user input. Tip number 1, test with understanding. So what I mean by this is that we could use the understanding feature of the portal to test various expressions that we have in mind. So let's try a couple. Let's try status startup. And you can see that the chatbot understands it with the confidence of 68%. We could try another one that is like startup happening. And in this case, again, it matches to event status, but only with 55%. So most likely the chatbot will reject this as a possibility. So this is a very important feature that you could use. So each time you tweak your questions and expressions that you expect to match, you could very quickly validate them to see if you're getting the results that you expect. Tip number 2, use problems check to analyze all conversations and Q&As in one easy step. Native Chat has this really cool feature which is called problems check, and if I run a quality check, it will go through all the expressions that we trained it with and then provide us with a set of answers and a confidence level for each of them. So we could go and scroll through all of them to analyze what sort of questions and answers we are getting and what is the confidence level for each of them. So from here I can quickly search our meetings Q&A, and you will see all the expressions on the left that the chatbot attempted, and then the expected response, and then the actual response that we got, and the confidence level for all of those. So this chatbot is actually pretty well trained, and it was able to match pretty much all the expressions to all the questions that a chatbot could ask at a quick glance. However, especially for this webinar, I've created another project, which is company chatbot, and this one should have some problems. So if I go to training and problems check and run a quality check, we should be getting some problems, and I'll basically follow with some tips and tricks on how to solve these problems. So you can see our chatbot has 5 Q&As, and each one will ask what is the location of office A, B, C, and D, and then the final one is what offices do you have. And you can see the first 4 are very similar, and the confidence level is not satisfactory, and actually the chatbot is not able to match to the right answer. Tip number 3, we could solve that problem by adding more weight to the important tokens. So if you still remember how NLP works and how it assesses what's important, we could basically try to add some additional expressions that would tell the chatbot which of the tokens are extra important. So to fix our chatbot, I will go to question answering, find our office FAQ, and then fix each of those Q&As. So you can add additional expression to each of them. So it will be where is office A located? Then let's do the same thing for B, save changes, C, save changes, and finally D, save changes. And what I'm really doing in here is making the name of the office extra important by highlighting it twice. So we have 2 expressions, and we use the office D, C, B, and A in each of them. So let's save that, go to problems check, run a quality check one more time, and this time I will expect all of them to be green. And just like expected, the chatbot was able to match each of those user expressions to the output that we would expect. The conclusion for this tip is as follows. provide your chatbot with multiple expressions to help the chatbot identify the keywords. Another way of solving the same problem that we had a moment ago would be by removing the stop words. And stop words are usually words like is, are, might, to, etc., etc. And it really depends on the kind of expressions that you keep using, so these don't have to necessarily be always the same ones. So I'll go to our question and answering and modify the questions that we have to just try the other approach. So I'll remove the additional expression and then just remove the stop word. So we don't need this and this, so word location office A is enough. Let's do the same thing here. Word location office B, save. Let's go here. Word location office C, save changes. And then finally, word location office D, save changes. So going again to problems check, we should be able to run a quality check. And as expected, all the tests passed and this approach also works. And the conclusion for this tip is make the training expressions concise to help the chatbot identify the keyword. Tip number 5. For any Q&As that follow the same pattern of questions and answers, we can turn them into a guided task, which can be done in 3 steps. First, we need to add an entity for an office. This is our way of giving the chatbot a list of offices and how to identify them. So usually when we want to create a new entity, we just press here, give it a name, and then we can tell it whether it should be a static list. So this is one where we provide all the items in there manually, or we could choose dynamic and we can point it to a backend on your system that will give it a list of all the available offices or whatever data that you want. And usually once that's done, you just press create and you can start adding items. Just to save the time, I already have an office entity which already has 4 offices. One is from London, Paris, Rotterdam, and Sofia. So if I look at one of them, you can see that we can find each office by either saying London or Bracknell, and each of them will have some additional information like a phone number and address. So let's add an additional record for our Boston office. So I'll press add new, say Boston. As a synonym, I will say Bedford. And then we can add some additional data to this record. So I can say we have a phone, which is +1 781 280 4000. Then we can add address, which is 14 Oak Park Drive, Bedford. And we can save the changes, and we've just added an additional entity. So now that the chatbot knows what offices are available, the second step is to create a conversation that is capable of picking this office and then displaying to the user. This is done from the Cognitive Flow tab. In here, we have some already basic conversations like help and restart, and I'm going to add a new one. So I will say conversation of type goal, and this conversation will be called office location. It's worth remembering this value because we'll be using it later. And this conversation will work in 2 steps. The first step is of type question. So we'll ask the user a question of which office they're interested in seeing. So I will remember the value inside an office variable. If the user does tell us which office they're interested, then office will contain that value. And then I'm going to say that the type of the response that I expect from the user is of type office. Next thing, we can provide a prompt question, which will be used to ask the user for which office they're interested. And finally, we can add a little helper. So it is called display type quick reply, which basically will provide a list of available offices to the user. So they don't have to guess which offices we have. They'll be able to pick one of them. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is of type message. So we'll display to the user a message and tell them the address of the office. So the answer should be something like the address is, and then I can do something like office.address. And with just this little trick, this chat will be able to get the office from the user, and then provide them with the address. Let's save that. And the final step now is basically to go to training and conversation triggers. So this is our way to tell when we want to trigger the office location conversation, and we can provide a list of expressions that should trigger this conversation. So we should use something like, what is location of office, and where is office located. We can save this and finally test. Where is the Boston office? And the chat will give us an address. And let's try one more. What is your office location? And this time, because we didn't provide the office that the chatbot should give us an answer for, we can choose one, and then the chat will respond with the address for that specific office. So in a way, a guided task for repetitive Q&As will work even better than individual questions and answers, because it will give you a fail-safe mechanism in case the user asks for the wrong office, or if they don't provide the office name in the input. To summarize, you should test your questions and conversation triggers as you go. Use the understanding feature and use the problems check to test all the expressions. Help your chatbot understand user input by providing multiple training phrases and making your expressions concise. And finally, use guided tasks for repetitive Q&As. That is all from me. Thank you for listening, and now pass the mic back to Ilian. Thank you.
If you're interested in introducing chatbots for your business, then the next 5 minutes will be useful for you. Okay, I would like to talk to you about the native chat pilot program that we're working on. The idea is that if you want to introduce a chatbot to your business, you can join our pilot program where our native chat engineering team will work with you to help you achieve that. The pilot works in 3 phases. The first phase is a requirements gathering phase. We work with you to figure out the scenarios that are most important for you. Then we will progress to the implementation phase. This is where we will work side by side with you to help you implement the scenarios that we agreed on during the requirements gathering phase. And finally, we will have some meetings which will be dedicated to product feedback and planning next steps. Let's have a look at each of those phases in more details. With the requirements gathering, we will start by trying to figure out what would be the best conversation flow for your scenarios. And we will come up with some sort of a script that will cover this. Then we will take a look at the questions and answers and build a list of those that would work best for you. After that, we investigate different deployment targets. You can deploy your chatbot to an Alexa device, or to a web page, or use Facebook Messenger. So in here we would figure out which deployment target would work for you given the time frame of the pilot, which is up to 1 month. Then we will come up with the acceptance criteria, which is basically a compilation of your actual business requirements. And all of that will be finalized in a pilot flow agreement document. The next phase is implementation. We will spend a day or two to provide you with proper training on how to use native chat and how to work with it. Then we will spend about 2 days on pair programming with a dedicated technical expert from your side. We will also spend about half a day working with your subject matter expert on implementing those questions and answers. And finally, we will spend about a day on setting up the deployment that you agreed on. As a result of this phase, you will have a working chatbot ready to use. And when that's done, we will move to the final phase, the sign-off. In that phase, we will hold a meeting with all your stakeholders. We will ask for feedback in terms of how it all went and whether this is something that would work for you and what would be the best way to move forward. Then we would talk about the future of this chatbot. What would it take for you to reach the next stage? And hopefully you will be a happy user of native chat. In terms of next steps, make sure to check the pilot program page if you have a use case in mind and would like to talk to someone from the native chat team about your idea. We also have a great free tutorial. You can use this to try out native chat. Just head out to progress.com/nativechat /chatbot-tutorial. And with that, let's move to your questions. Give me some time to open the questions tab and read the first question. Okay. Okay. So the first question is there a way to get feedback from the chatbot about a question that it required to the user? I can't understand. Or I can read the conversations to find the wrong answers. Okay, so in native chat portal, you can see all conversations with the bot, and they're visible in the history tab. From there, you can search for what the bot didn't understand and see what phrase did the user say. The next question. Can native chat do more than just Q&As? So native chat can do more than just Q&As. Other companies call them contextual chatbots. We call them guided task completion chatbots. But you can automate some transactions, you can automate processes, and you can define the workflow with them. What is the obligation if we decide not to move forward after a pilot program? So there is no obligation as part of the pilot program. So you join if you have the required use case, and you can do the chatbot. And if you are unhappy with some of the things, you can stop right there. We run a digital marketing agency and would want to provide and offer chatbots to our clients. How do we proceed? So if you want to resell chatbots, you can buy a license, expose that chatbot to your customers, and take it from there. And the other way is, if you want, you can buy licenses for native chat for those customers. You can reach out to us and we can discuss that. We have some more customers similar to your use case, so we can discuss it. Can the chat be deployed on a website of a SaaS product and also inside the product interface? Yes, so we can easily deploy on a website in any product. We support a web widget out of the box. And inside the product interface, it really depends on what technologies the product is using, but we have several ways to do that. One of them is through custom channels. So some of those we support them like SMS channels, and you can integrate that in your own UI through that thing for seamless experience. Or if you're using like a mobile app, you can use some of the out-of-the-box user interfaces that we provide. It really depends on the use case, but I would say that you can do both. What are the channels supported for integrations? So currently we support REST APIs for integrations with data services. And so you just need a REST API, an HTTP endpoint to integrate with your system. And for customer communication, like the front end of your chatbot, we support Viber, Facebook Messenger, also websites, as I said, and then we support some of those are behind feature flags, but we support WhatsApp, we support SMS channels through Twilio, and also you can integrate your own channel if you wish, because we have an API for that. Do you have any live sites you can go to and see it in action? So the easiest way you can see the chatbot in action is to go to our native chat website. We have several demo chatbots on that website, and also we have a chatbot which is booking appointments with our product experts. You can use that to book an appointment with us if you want to discuss the pilot program. The other use case we have is a Bulgarian hospital, which is called Dr. Sterev. So they can you can see that chatbot is deployed in Facebook as well as another channel. How is native chat licensed? Any other software required? So for native chat, you don't need any other software to build the chatbot. You just need the license for native chat and yourself. And how it's licensed, we can discuss that separately, but it's comparable to other products on the market. It's not super expensive, although it says contact us. We are currently exploring the best way to position that, and that's why it's not public. Let me see more. Once deployed, would we require IT support for it? Or it is user-friendly where we do not need IT? So once the chatbot is deployed, let me begin even further back. So even for the development of the chatbot, if you're developing just a FAQ chatbot, you can do it without IT people. And you can deploy it as well because it's very easy if you're using CMS system like WordPress, Sitefinity, or Drupal. If you are developing a more complex use case, like a guided task completion, which requires some integrations, you would need some help in order to develop the chatbot, but you can change how it reacts, the training of it, as part of the UI. You don't need IT people for it, for changing the experience. If you need to change the integration though, you might need someone because that's like maybe some REST endpoints that you need. Can you pull in CRM data to create the Q&A? Currently, we are exposing ability to import question and answers through a CSV. So if you export that from your current CRM system into a CSV, and you can import it into native chat. And if you're interested in something more specific, we have a way to train the chatbot with dynamic data, so it can pull the data from endpoints that you provide. So you can reach out to us and we can discuss it further. What language can we use to write the backend for native chat? So native chat is purely the JSON that Sebastian showed you a little bit during the webinar. So you just use that JSON in order to write it. You don't need any specific language skills. And if you need something more complex, you might need a backend endpoint, but that's up to your choice. It's not part of the chatbot building process. Can this replace a knowledge base? Yes, we have some customers which are replacing their knowledge base articles with that. I will not say replace, because most of them are linking to a more detailed set of information, but you can use it as a first level of interaction. So you can get all those questions and answers trained against, and if people come to you with a specific question, you can redirect them to that knowledge base article. Let me see. So what are the unique selling points of native chat against, let's say, over intercom chat? So it's very different from intercom, because if you in intercom that's usually a chatbot that you deploy on your website and you interact directly with it, so you can serve as a let's say help desk through a chatbot. While with native chat, it's more on the automation side. So you can build those automation scripts and also train against that NLP, natural language processing, to answer those frequently asked questions. And then after that, you can integrate with intercom, for example. So if you want to hand it off to a wife agent. Do you have any business cases where this solution has shown to reduce costs? Yeah, this is actually the exact use case of that Bulgarian hospital that I mentioned a little bit earlier during the questions and answers session. So they managed to reduce the load, but I need to find the exact numbers. I think it was above 40% of calls being reduced because they allowed scheduling through a chatbot. Let me see. Okay, I think it's around 60. It's around 60% reduction. I think I don't have any more unanswered questions, or at least I have read a lot of questions and I'm missing something. Can the chatbot be used on a voice assistant platform? So we currently have integration with Alexa. So if you want to use Alexa for that, you can use that. It's one of the voice assistant platforms. Can you spell the name of the hospital that you're mentioning? The guys over here will reply to that question and you'll see it directly. Safe to assume that the chatbot can be integrated with intercom? Yes, I think that our chatbots can be integrated with intercom for wife handoff. Is native chat able to understand user input if it has a very small difference between two intents? So it really depends on the training of your bot, but you can if you input those differences in the training, the bot will be able to merge them and react accordingly. Okay, so those are all the questions. How many customers are using native chat bots now, and what industries? I can't disclose the numbers of users because it's a private company information, but you can see on our website the industries that we currently support. And we also support other industries as well, because the chatbots can be tailored to any specific use case that you might have. Okay, so I have one more question on the, is native chat mainly for questions and answers? Or we can do the main context for flows. So I would understand this question as, can you do more than just questions and answers? And you can implement more complex flows and also define it like a transaction. So it could be like filling time off, or maybe another use case which would be applying for a loan, or maybe even another use case which would be applying for a job in a company. So it can be, and native chatbots can be used for all those. Do you have any higher education customers and what they use it for? So they use, we have a few higher education customers, and they're using the chatbots for both frequently asked questions, and they're also using it for like automation of questions to the registrar's office, or for different signups for courses. It really depends on the university. But we have experience with those. We have some of those customers. So we have one more question on the integration. Can you share a quick insight on how native chat can be integrated to Intercom? Does it need a developer from our side to customize? So I think that we should take this offline and discuss it on a call, because it's quite specific, and we can provide you with the guidance and help on that. You can use either our web form for contact us or the chatbot on our website to book an appointment with one of our guys. Just mention that you want to discuss this. Okay, I'll let you stay for around 1 minute before I close, because I have no more questions. Okay, I have one more question. Can we integrate cognitive services to native chat, like visual recognition, tone analyzer, or anything like that? Yes, you can integrate those. We are currently working on some exciting examples which provide customers with the ability to integrate chat and chatbots with use cases like processing documents and extracting the data from them, or processing pictures and also allowing people to extract information from them for internal company analysis. So yes, and currently one of the things that we do, we have an integrated service that we use for some of the features for native chat, which is actually image recognition. So native chat can be integrated with such services. I just wanted to note something more on the higher education. We have some of our customers which are using the chatbots for application of students as part of reducing the load when they apply in the university. So this is something that helps universities a lot. Okay, I'll let you, if you have more questions, you can type them, or we'll close the webinar in a few minutes.